I've had some friends that have either had government jobs or government adjacent jobs. And for them, it's watching some of their work be completely undone in a number of months, even if it took them years to make that sort of momentum.
Everyone here have a friend who works either in DC or a government office that's dealing with this?
I have clients, yeah.
Clients, okay, so 3 out of 4. So clients as well. Okay, yeah, and I just wanted to echo Devin there that's felt throughout any bureaucratic homie.
Actually, I have a friend who works for a company that's in the agriculture space, and they just had $23 million of funding just gone.
That makes more sense. So I figured it was 100%.
Steven, you're kind of better at the hype intro. I can hype. Can you summarize what I?
You know what my instinct was to respond to that is to go, woo!
All right, that's the start.
We got it. Okay, so
can't wait to edit this episode.
We brought together this council of hooligans to talk about the state of politics and stress in our great nation that doesn't feel so great all the time. So what Aaron teed us up for before we hit record was this discussion is going to be had or sort of channeled through the lens of neurodiversity, through ADHD specifically, but also ADHD and anxiety, depression, etc. Politics covers or touches all of these brain types and all of these experiences. And as Aaron said accurately, we, the 4 of us here, and probably those listening, are feeling a great amount of stress and anxiety in our country based on what's going on around us. If you have eyes open and ears open, it's hard to avoid. It's hard to dismiss. Some of us here might argue it's impossible to avoid or to dismiss what's going on all around us. And it's every day. So there's not a great deal of reprieve from this anxiety and from this stress. The more conventional waves of sort of like hot and cold don't feel like they're there anymore. So it just kind of feels like wall to wall conversations, hype, stress. Long gone are the days of taking a breath and going outside and not looking at a screen. It feels like screens are everywhere all the time and the news is on constantly. So that's why we're here. If that intro didn't get you a little stressed, a little tight, then I don't know who you are or how you're avoiding it better than the 4 of us here. So without further ado, I'll introduce Aaron, David, and Devin. I'm Steven Tonti. I'm co-founder of Attention Different. We've got Aaron Smith.
Hi, I'm Aaron Smith. I'm a clinical therapist and ADHD coach.
And Devin.
I'm not a mental health professional, but I am a mental health enthusiast.
And David.
I'm David Grabowski. I'm the producer for Attention Different. I do not have ADHD, just to get that out in the open right away. And I am I'm honored to be the featured guest of this episode. So thank you so much.
Of course, this is now when we're supposed to have this stuff going. Yeah, come on. Okay. We'll call this an unscheduled roundtable. This is to meet the moment. Right? We're here to meet the moment and talk about how we're all feeling. Aaron, take us away.
We're coming off the heels of No King's Day protests this past weekend and Trump's birthday parade. Whatever you want to refer
Trump's
to it
birthday
as.
Parade. I want to call it that. I want to call it Trump's birthday parade.
I just to chime in on the birthday parade real quick, like I saw some photos from the parade, and even just from like a sheer entertainment value perspective, like boring parade.
Oh, was it?
It's like tanks rolling down a street. Like, would you travel to go watch a tank roll down a street? Like,
no.
Some people.
No. And the audience, there was not the attendance that he expected, right? Like when you look
there
at the
sure
pictures.
wasn't. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. One of those tanks needed way more WD-40.
Yeah. Squeaky wheels, right? Yeah.
The one squeaky tank.
Awful.
I love this. Yeah.
But we're going off the heels of a massive millions and millions of people. I think the estimates I was hearing like upwards of 5 million plus.
11 million.
11 million is what they're saying now?
I saw 11 million. Yep.
Stand corrected. So way more than Trump's, the people that watched and tuned in and attended that birthday parade to Trump's, honoring his achievement of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do today is kind of focus first on like what Steven said is the uncertainty, this unpredictability, how that's impacting each of us. And relating this back to ADHD, the emotional flooding, the executive functions of ADHD, emotional regulation. With ADHD and other like complex mental health conditions, people who maybe, this is more general and broad here, but people that are experiencing or have depression, major depression, anxiety, or they have symptoms of past trauma, how all of this stuff compounds in the individual. So I want to just like see how you guys are all dealing with this and just open up the floor to talking about this, because it's just been a lot. It's been a lot for me, and I know it's been a lot for all of you too.
Do you want me to get? I'll jump in.
Who wants to go first?
No, I'll jump in. I'll be a good leader. So I'll tee this up. I just didn't want to be selfish, but I'll tee this up in the way that I know how, which is a little bit of addictive and compulsive behavior from an adult ADHD. So my story begins, and this is the TLDR version. Too long, didn't read. After the election, the day after, I stopped listening to news and politics immediately.
It still blows my mind.
And I'm glad David says it.
David knowing what I know about you.
Yeah. And the people here know me best. I was on an on-ramp, an exponential on-ramp leading up to the election where I normally was listening to 2 to 4 hours of news and politics a day. By the election,
no exaggeration.
No. By the time of the election, it was like 6 hours, like 6 to 8 hours a day. That means like at the gym, at work, at lunch, it was just politics and news. And I finally said to my mother, like days after the election when everybody was shell shocked, right? Mom, I am clocking the hours of a journalist or a politician, and you will note I am not either of those. Like that, it was bewildering to me in hindsight how much I was consuming and how much that was regulating my everyday. Now, what happens on the 5th, on the 6th, you recall that you were not a journalist, you were not a politician, and the whole house of cards I had built came crashing down. I have no control over the outcome. I had so little control compared to what I thought. Huge devastation leads to months of not listening to news or politics. When I got my nails done, I would purposefully sit in a chair away from the television screen. Like during the California fires, that's about the time I saw a news program was the California fires.
So this was an intentional decision. What was that impetus for you to say, like, I'm going to turn this stuff off. I'm going to tune out, because you were highly tuned in before.
It was out of, initial response, rage, like super rage against the machine. Fuck this. I can't believe I set myself up for this failure. Failure being defined as disappointment. Yes, exactly. So like that disappointment was so massive. I was initially enraged, and that, deuces up. It's quit mode, right? Nope mode hit. The following thought was that reflection I gave, which is, oh my God, I've been consuming an amount of media that professionals would in this space. And I'm not a professional politician. I'm not a professional journalist. And the people who are the professionals were ironically saying to me through the podcast, like, I'm a big fan of Crooked Media, and they were saying, we all know we're crazy, how much of this stuff we consume all day. And I wasn't picking up the gravity of what they were saying. They were admitting that it's an insane amount of content that they're putting out and consuming. And it kind of like the Kool-Aid that you drink is you believe you're in the clubhouse. You believe you're affecting great change, when in reality you are one small part in a massive wave of people that you hope is big enough to affect great change. And then the hindsight 2020 of, I'm not a professional journalist. I'm not a professional politician. The question was, why? Why am I putting this much disciplined focus and effort into something that is ultimately toxic to me and my health?
Yeah.
And is not producing anything.
Yeah. Research shows that it's like the more media you consume, the more likely you are to have depression, anxiety, and increased stress. Right. It's shown that across the board. So
yeah.
I'm just curious, Steven, can you answer that question now? The question you just asked, like why were you consuming so much? And also, ancillary question, as someone who's had the distinct pleasure of living with Steven, I can attest that the first thing you hear from Steven's whereabouts in the house is, oh, this is the BBC at 6 a.m.
You're not wrong.
Showers running, the electric saver, bing, you hear, oh, today in Afghanistan, blah, 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 blah.
It's so inaccurate. Devastating.
So yeah, two-part question. Can you why?
Yeah.
Why? And also,
yeah.
what was the reaction of the good folks around you?
Yeah. The answer why was as sad and tragic as it is real, a virtual made up sense of control. It was a response to fear and to terror of where the country was headed, and to these philosophies that seem to be much larger and wider spread than we knew, and thinking, okay, there's no sense in sitting in my room and just fretting about this. So I'm going to do as much as I can, knock doors. I am also a very politically motivated person. I've been that way my whole life. Thank you, Mama Tonti. I've just always been a, one vote, one choice, that sort of thing. One person, one vote. I naturally tend towards towards politics anyway, but in earnest and tragic and simple, a sense of control, desperately wanting to have a sense of control. And actually directly in keeping with what Aaron just said, consuming more media, it's a self-perpetuating, right? A perpetual motion machine. Like you just keep consuming more, you're consuming more. I have a way to break it down for the artists who are listening though. My friend Paul and I came up with this self-observation between the two of us, both ADHDers and both politically minded, sociopolitically minded. We have found that in our lives, there is a almost one-to-one inversion or comparison rather for how depressed and anxious we are and the amount of talking head radio we're listening to versus the amount of music and new music we're listening to. And we have found that if Paul and I are finding new music and listening to music, we are in a happier, more content, stable, and peaceful place. And if we are listening to an inversion, right, much more talk radio, much more talk stuff, human voices talking at us, then we are probably in a state of more anxiety and more depression. And we've noticed this just about ourselves over the years.
So being inundated with all this stuff, listening to these podcasts and consuming this news. On the one hand, you felt engaged and like you're being informed, but on the other hand, it's you're trying to do something about the problem, which you can't control, which is just completely outside of the domain of your actual.
Yeah, you can literally. I'm speaking for the people listening who go out and knock doors. The people listening will know what I mean when I say that phrase, right? I'm a politically motivated person, and even I only have so much control. I only have so much that I can affect in terms of change, right? But media convinces you. It convinces you that you can still do more.
Yeah, and even that, and I think it's even that we feel like we're doing something by just passively consuming, which we're not, right? Being on social media, doing a little comment here, a like here, posting something, listening to something, watching something, that's not doing political work. That's really not engaging.
And I want to encourage that. Yeah, I want to encourage that. I know we're a company that encourages political work, meaning on the boots on the ground work. And thank you, Aaron, for the clarification. That passive listening is what was on the increase in my life, right? 6 to 8 hours of listening. That's not me knocking doors. That's not me out in meeting people, engaging with my neighborhood or my community. That's just at the gym, pumping iron and listening to how the world is falling apart for an hour and a half.
I can relate to that. I feel like, politics aside, when I'm worried about something, or I'm I tend to hyperfixate on it to the point where I'm I'm researching it, to a ridiculous level. And sometimes it's a thing that hasn't even happened yet. It's if I figure it, it's sort of like if I get in the ocean, then the ocean will be less scary because I'll be in it. But it doesn't.
Oh, that's so profound.
Doesn't really work that way.
Here you are at the top of this dumb episode, being like, David's not going to say anything profound. That's so profound. That's exactly the sensation. It's less scary to be in. The ocean is less scary if I just go walk in it and stand in it, and that's definitely part of the impetus to envelop myself in news and politics. Is right. Well, if I'm in it.
But then, of course, it's oh fuck, it's so deep.
It's being informed versus overexposure.
What's your experience been like, Devin? How have you been riding this wave?
So I've realized that probably a lot of my coworkers tend to gravitate towards the workplace environment because it is sort of like a reprieve from the real world, where I kind of feel like it's surreal to have a 9, 10, 11-hour workday. Knowing everything that is going on and having work that doesn't tie exclusively to it as my primary job function. So that one's been kind of interesting, trying to level set when having conversations with other people. So I'll usually say like, I'm doing well, all things considered, because I'm trying to leave space for folks to say that maybe they're not doing so hot, or acknowledging that like, hey, if you're not feeling 100% right now, like there's a valid reason for that.
And just for our listeners, Devin is a Salesforce consultant, right?
Yep. A partner company with Salesforce. So we build out Salesforce stuff for clients, either return, net new, all that.
So your job, your day-to-day is not focused on politics, but you are actively involved in some other outside organizations outside of work, and have done a lot of political stuff outside of this. So just give our listeners a little sense of that too, because you are very invested in change work.
Sure. Yeah. The big thing that I've been involved with these last 5 years, apparently, has been the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking, which is a local nonprofit here in Denver. They do a combination of research, so using data to figure out trends like things that drive human trafficking here in the state of Colorado. They look at things like labor trafficking, obviously sex human trafficking, commercial exploitation. And I signed up during quarantine actually to be one of their hotline/text line volunteers. So if someone calls in to report a tip, maybe someone is calling in because they've just escaped their trafficker, they need resources, whether it's immediate shelter, extended stay, or even legal counsel. LCHD has actually partnered with a bunch of providers across the state to make sure that we have these abilities to try and get folks in touch with the sources that they need. And that has been something that's helped. The staff there, despite how serious in nature human trafficking is, always seems optimistic and determined to continue to combat it. And that does a lot of goodwill for my mental health when I'm going to things like the 20th anniversary that they celebrated last month.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll have some other episodes or ways to learn more about that stuff too. I want to bring this discussion back though to kind of that central question that I asked, just about, I think, uncertainty, right? This uncertainty and this onslaught of these dynamics. And I think the Trump administration, Trump himself, feeds off of this, right? Being a narcissistic sociopath that he is, not diagnosing him officially, but a whole bunch of psychiatrists wrote an entire book on this. So you can check that one out if you want. And they did attempt to diagnose him. But it's pretty obvious from his behavior and the way he engages things that it's the going in and breaking stuff and then seeing what happens and then having the news media and the attention come back to him. But I think as a person in society, what we do is we actually experience that as triggering over and over and over and over. And if you have any sort of trauma or sensitivity to this stuff, it's just like, anywhere you turn, you're like faced with some other new extreme thing, right? A tweet, something in the news that just happens over and over. So this onslaught of constant divisiveness and extreme actions that are unpredictable. I mean, some of it was predictable because he said exactly what he was going to do, which is horrible.
Yeah, turns out
he meant it. But some of this stuff has just gone way beyond, I think, what anyone had thought that may happen. Just like scary stuff, right? So how has that been coming up and showing up for you guys?
Let's work backwards to forwards. Devin, David, Steven.
Sure. So it's always interesting. I think I've had some friends that have either had government jobs or government adjacent jobs. And for them, it's watching some of their work be completely undone in a number of months, even if it took them years to make that sort of momentum.
Does everyone here have a friend, like just out of curiosity, can everybody here like raise their hand if asked? Did you have a friend who works either in DC or a government office that's dealing with this?
I have clients, yeah.
Clients, okay, so 3 out of 4. So clients as well. Okay, yeah, and I just wanted to echo Devin there that's felt throughout any bureaucratic homie.
Yeah, and I have a cousin that she had her research grant cut.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a friend who works for a company that's in the like agriculture space, and they just had $23 million of funding just gone.
That makes more sense. So I figured it was 100% because what I'm hearing out of my DC friends is same, but and then. So okay, Devin.
Sure. So that's just been a very tough thing.
Yeah.
To your point, Stephen, I've also been struggling with trying to understand how much is being just informed enough, because obviously you're paying attention to these things. You're trying to understand how they can impact people you know, people you care about, or even people that you haven't met that you might need to support, but also not trying to end up in a position where you're just following everything on, you're on the pulse. So anytime there's new development, you've picked up your phone to just unearth whatever new fresh hell has just surfaced. So it's been struggling with that, but also trying to be a little bit more diligent in taking care of myself. It's, for example, practicing bass a little bit more often. It's checking with friends and trying to, send these positive affirmations and reinforcements. It's making sure that my 11-year-old old man dog here on the floor didn't get disrupted when I needed to close the door to my office for this episode. And I've been trying to explore what it looks like to do a little bit more than surviving. I realized myself personally coming out of quarantine, got into a headspace where I was constantly expecting like that worst case scenario. So during quarantine, it was, all right, if my phone vibrates, did someone I know die? And getting to the point where if I was playing a video game or watching a TV show or reading a book, if there was a happy ending, I would start getting teared up because my brain was just kind of like on red alert, and finding that place more commonly and just staying there.
Right.
So recently I've been trying to figure out how to be prepared for these things, but also feel determined to find some sort of happiness that doesn't feel like blissful ignorance.
Yeah.
I've nailed it.
It's really, it is. That's the central question. How do we know what's enough where we're being informed participants and we're not simply actually feeding into what we don't want to happen through apathy, right? Like you can't stay neutral on a moving train kind of thing. But at the same time, how do we not be engaged 24/7 and let that, let us martyr ourselves to a cause in a sense, and give up so much of our own well-being and identity and time that we, essentially have, maybe it affects our work, maybe it affects our productivity, maybe it affects our family and our relations, because we're showing up and listening and engaged so much. And I think what that does too is, like, on an individual level, it increases a lot of your cortisol, your adrenaline. Yeah. And we get cortical fatigue. And I think when we're triggered all the time, it produces a generalized sense of anxiety and therefore also some despair and depression. Yep. Because we don't have any ability to stop it. Like it's like being attacked by something from the outside. Constantly.
Yeah. It's that tiger metaphor, right? That like we used to depend on these hormones and neurotransmitters to get us the fuck to safety. Yeah. Like out of harm's way. No, like at all cost, right? Go.
Right.
And we don't have a tiger anymore. We have a Trump. Right. And it's like constant.
And it's coming through our phone all of the time.
Yeah.
We're
everywhere. There's a tiger constantly there.
And through our friends and everybody around us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I wanted you to pick up the torch, David, actually, like, because Aaron also said family. And I thought you have a kid, which means you inevitably interact with other parents and their kids. So like, how does this settle on your ears? The balance between what is too much.
I don't know what that balance looks like, man. And I said this, like, as soon as he was elected, I was like, I got to figure out how much of this shit I like can take in and try to figure out how to still live and be a good father and show up in a good way. I still don't know what that looks like, man, because it comes in big waves. And like when there's something big hitting, like the ICE protests and, what the LAPD have been doing, and like the Huntington Beach cops, abusing civilians and, attacking them and trampling them with their horses and shit. It's really hard to not key into that and have it affect my emotional state. I will tell you, I'll tell you this anecdote. So I was at the No Kings protests, which was good. It was good to see lots of other people who feel the same way that I do and are very, very angry. And I think it's good to understand that there is a huge amount of the US population that's fucking pissed about this bullshit that's happening. And, it will reach a point where we are not going to tolerate it anymore. And as I was talking with my friends who have kids about what is that point, And, we were talking about like the Trump's plan to try to get a third term. And we're like, we cannot let that happen. Like there are, if I'm using a aviation metaphor, I'm seeing the mountains in the distance when we're coming up on them. And if the mountains are there, we're going to have to hit the fucking throttle because we're not crashing in the mountains. And I'm not allowing, a dictatorship to fucking take hold in this country because it will fuck up my kid's life. And I will have to take more extreme action, if it's necessary than just holding a sign at a rally. So it's good.
You can't say that about our new God King. You just can't say that.
I'm going to say it's still legal to have, freedom of speech.
Right. We still believe in the Constitution, that little document.
Yeah. At some point it is over my fucking dead body or we're out of here. I don't know which of those it is.
You hear it a lot. You hear it a lot from our kin, the over my dead body or we're out of here.
Yeah.
You know what? I just heard something and you teed it up perfectly, David. 3.5%.
Yeah.
Which is the 3.5% rule, which was published by a woman who I was just watching interviewed on Crooked Media back in 2013. She had been researching for her PhD, I believe, a century's worth of governments and how they rise and fall. And someone asked the question, what is the tipping point in nonviolent protest for the fall of a government? And she was like, actually, in that beautiful eureka moment, we kind of have percents around this, but no one's ever just asked that question outright. And she crunches the numbers, blah, 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 does all their beautiful statistician work. And they realize, holy shit, it's 3.5%. If 3.5% of a government's populace practices nonviolent, organized, and consistent protest, then that government always fails. Specifically, there are like four tenets of nonviolent protest, and we won't go through them now. I just wanted to put that number out there that we do have, as of 2013 and beyond, this known tipping point. Human beings are a large part of our population doesn't believe what I'm about to say, and that's spooky, but we are animals. We're primates, right? We are what? And we behave in flocking mentality or in flocking behaviors in the same way that birds do and herds of wildebeest. And it only takes a certain amount before we snowball.
Yeah. Erica Genoa's work is really interesting.
Erica Genoa. That's a thank you.
And so the number for the US, just so people have this in their mind, right? It would be 12.25 million people.
Yeah.
That's the
only 1.5 million more had showed up on Saturday.
But do you get the comparison, David? Like that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Those numbers mean something.
Mm-hmm. But and it's over time. And I think the movement is building. The anger and things are fomenting in the community. So I think it's like going to exponentially start to grow because you saw people. I mean, when I was at the Denver protest this weekend, I mean,
particularly massive. I saw the numbers in Denver. Y'all were.
Yeah, there was 80-year-olds, people coming
off
in their wheelchairs, people who fought in World War II. This is not ragtag or your typical activist bunch or something like that, or young people, like people might imagine. These are people who one accountant was sitting behind me, right? Or a CPA, right? Was sitting behind me.
Yeah, a CPA.
And was like pining to herself, I wonder if my client's now going to not want to invest with me because they're going to see a picture of me at this protest. And so this is obviously like one of her first times like going and engaging. And there was so many people like that that I saw that I knew like these aren't your people that go to these things all the time. These are pissed off everyday US citizens and other folks in our community who are coming out, right? That are just mad.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a horseshoe, a little bit of a normal curve thing here because the issue that Democrats have or that liberals have politically is the big tent thing, right? It gets in our way. We include so many other views. It's very, very hard for us to zero in on a single or two single topics and like really back that and run with that. We get very diffuse. We get very spread out. Ironically, the inverse is true in this scenario. In the nonviolent protest scenario, it is actually nonviolent peaceful protest based on these tenets, right? That once we hit those numbers, it is because of the nonviolence that attracts the amount of numbers that you need. And it's the accountant behind you, right? It's the person who's a banker who might actually have voted Republican the last few times, but everybody knows what no kings means.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what no kings means. That's a simple, simple target.
So there's a book by Corey Keyes. It's called Languishing: How to Feel Alive Again in a World That Wears Us Down. And I believe he wrote this in the like COVID era of stuff. So there's a lot of references in the book, surrounding COVID and how that pandemic, because it was so much out of our control. But I also think that this is a bit like this contagion of, we have something outside of our control politically, so much division and so much infighting, and it is like a virus in some ways, that it's taken over and spreading. And what we need to do is look at this through some sort of a lens we can kind of wrap our head around. And what Corey Keyes talks about is this idea of languishing and flourishing, and these two concepts. So like languishing basically is a kind of pervasive feeling that something is not right, that you're not well, that it comes up in kind of this emptiness, this restless emptiness that's there, this hopelessness, this stagnation. It's not quite depression. You can experience languishing without being depressed. So I think a lot of times we are feeling this way as a populace and around the world from the spread of these kind of like extremist right-wing tyrannical viewpoints. And there's this idea that there's like divisions in our community and taking us away from our sense of cohesiveness and collective action. And while there is no like exact definition in terms of mental illness or mental health with this, there's this whole study on where psychologists are kind of looking at the opposite of this. Like what is flourishing? What is psychological flourishing? And some of the things you guys mentioned earlier are things that we can actually do to help ourselves. So
go on.
Yeah. Things like regularly feeling joy. So doing stuff that's for the pure type of enjoyment, like things like maybe going for walks in nature, visiting friends, practicing a hobby, engaging in things that have increased your joy, your gratitude, stuff you're interested in. We do need to weave in times to do that stuff. We might think of that as like excessive or feel some sort of guilt that we're engaging in that stuff, but it's actually a form of self-care and perseverance. And it's a way of winning, I think, right? Like the whole mode of the way Trump and this ideology wins is it's built on fear and uncertainty.
Yes,
and
it has to be.
When people feel so much fear, they lean on a strong man or dictator type personality that says, I have it all figured out. Just follow me. Just say yes. Let's go. Right.
Yeah.
And if we cannot give in to the fear so much and can still find joy in the face of that, we're resisting in that moment. Yeah. The other thing is focusing on emotional well-being, how we take care of ourselves emotionally. And that can mean disengaging with media or figuring out the cadence that works for you. So I look at this as containers. We can find containers to put
unpack that. Yeah.
We all can tolerate a certain amount. So you can ask yourself, how much is enough to be informed? How much can I consume without it tipping over to the point?
Right. Like I had to quit cold turkey.
Yeah.
And then eventually in January, February, started like little bit by little bit. And now I have more of a balance between music, news, taskmasters on YouTube, etc.
Some of us maybe like you, Stephen, have that propensity to, once I start something, I'm just like, it's like this all or nothing. I'm in it. I'm inundated. I can't stop. So you might have to have more of a boundary there for yourself.
Yeah.
Others of us can consume smaller amounts in bite-sized pieces. So for instance, one way to actually do this, like something that I've been doing, is like, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to listen to something on NPR and then I'll just listen to this one segment. Whereas so I can get like the overview, the top level overview, but it's not on and on and on and hours of commentary type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll shut that off. But that'll, I'll be like, okay, so I'm getting the overview and then I have a pause.
Yeah,
stop
you're doing
and
the up first only, right?
Yep,
That
up first only,
it's
right?
Yeah,
or the BBC headline or whatever, right? That's it.
Is that an agreement you have with yourself in your head, or do you write it out, or how do you structure that? Because I find that I'm the type who I'll be like, okay, I do the same thing with YouTube, which is easy to do. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to look up this one dog training technique, and then I look at what's up next, and I was like, well, I should probably watch these other ones too, though. And then it's like, oh shit, where did the afternoon go?
I try to bookend it between things. I try to sequence this so that I can't spend all the time. I'm like, all right,
you have another thing that is happening.
Exactly. Yeah. I force the issue. I'm like, all right, before I go to the gym or while I'm getting ready, I'll do this. But then I have to get ready, get out the door, turn it off, and then go do something else. Yeah, and I've been trying to listen to audiobooks and other things to engage my interests and kind of psychological well-being too. So I'm like engaging my mind in other things. And that's helpful too, is to get your mind off of this stuff so you're not ruminating. Because I think if we're ruminating and going over and over and over and just thinking about stuff, that's what's going to cause more suffering to all of us.
Oh, definitely. Because it's intrusive thoughts. That's intrusive thought land.
And it's like,
yeah.
If we think about it, because I think we can get into this thing of, well, is it selfish? But it's not. Taking care of yourself is primary, has to be. Because if you're not in a good place yourself, you're going to be reactive. You're going to be quick-tempered, easily frustrated to the people around you that you care about. You're going to be burnt out. So we actually have to do this work. It's not like an option. It's like this is a necessity to do. Yeah. To take care of our own mental well-being before we go out there and try to help anything else. Because you're not going to help anyone if you're completely unregulated or dysregulated and reactive to everything that's going on. And another thing we can do is like social well-being, which is like engaging with your community, your friends, finding places where you can do that stuff, because we're so isolated these days that makes things worse.
May I share a small anecdote from last night? Right. So you guys notice you might notice I'm tired. It's been a long Pride weekend, and I'm very proud, puns intended, about this weekend and how it went. Like New Orleans showed up. All the No Kings protests were happening. New Orleans was celebrating Pride, and they're something so synonymous and similar was felt. And I felt like it was like same down here. It's just a little gayer, but it's same. Cut to this party, this brunch B-day yesterday that started sort of like 4 p.m. and went to the evening. There's a moment where all 30 or so guests, everybody, the median age is 35. We all introduced ourselves because there were some new people from out of town. And going around the circle, there was this hilarious, but I think everyone here is going to relate. There's this hilarious dichotomy that everybody was putting in the table. I am both more exhausted, emotionally spent, and burnt out and anxious and stressed than I have ever felt in my life. It was like everybody says. And then I am so ready to rage right now. I'm very confused about this sensation. Like a bunch of 30 somethings, some of us with kids, some of us not, all of us sitting around a bunch of barbecue and party supplies, had this wakeful moment that we were all feeling the same level of burnout and stress and anxiety, and our individual jobs and lives were adding to it. But there was a base, right? There was like a shared base of stress. And I think it came from this weekend, right? And from the last 6 months, right, of this year. And someone, I think I called it out and someone called it out because like the 8th person introducing themselves, it was the exact same message. I am so fucking tired. I don't know what I'm doing here, but also I have to rage. And we all laughed about that. And that there was something last night very crystal about this, the social, taking care of your socialization, right? All of us could have stayed home. All of us had a reason to stay home. All of us had a reason to isolate. And the 30 people there didn't. And I want to give those 30 people kudos because we all needed to socialize last night. We all needed to. And it was much better that we did. It was much better that we hung out, left our kids at home, hung out in a hot tub, had some good food, had some drinks, and we didn't talk about politics. We didn't talk about the news. We played like Twister and like board games and stuff. And that was an awesome thing to do yesterday.
Yeah.
We attended a little bit of the protest in Golden, specifically because we knew people that weren't going to be able to, attend a protest without their kids. To that point, I do know that
I wish I had brought my kid.
There were videos of DPD actually shooting protesters who were walking away from them with rubber bullets, which is real bad.
I no longer regret not bringing my kid.
Right.
Oh, really, David? Yeah.
Yeah, they had rubber bullets. There was tear gas. And that has really become more of the norm with protesting in Denver proper. Like they started doing that during protesting for George Floyd, and it seems like it's kind of been there to
So
stay.
why though? Like, what is the rationale that they even use to do that?
Dispersing crowd control tactics.
But was the crowd violent, and that's why they did it?
No. So when they do this, they cause things to escalate.
Yeah,
Typically,
so it does escalate things.
Pretty fucked up.
Since 9/11, this is my take on it, because I've been going to like protests since back in the war and terror days.
So since you came out of the womb, Aaron, I believe you've been going to protests.
But we had this idea back then where it was there. You had this zone, this like permitted zone. What's a legal protest and what's an illegal protest, which is kind of doesn't make any sense, right? It's like if we have enshrined in the Constitution the freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly, we should be able to do that anywhere that's public in this country.
100%.
Period. Right. So streets are public. Government, lawns and other public things that we pay for with tax dollars is public, right? So we should be able to do that. Private property, you can go back and forth on that, but like that, that's where the line's drawn. Now, if they're trying to disperse people off of public streets because it's a nuisance, because they didn't have a permit or their permitted rally is over at a certain point in time, I would say that's suppression of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Point blank. Mm-hmm. But that's the world we live in now. So I think since 9/11, since the whole war on terror stuff, there's been more and more of a crackdown on, all right, well, we'll give you a permit to do your little protest from, 12 until 4. And then once 4 o'clock hits, we expect everyone to disperse and go. And you can't be in the park anymore. You can't be out on the streets. And so that's the time when the cops and the riot gear and, other stuff come out and they start breaking everyone up. But of course, it also escalates the problem.
Yeah.
You bring in these like cops with body armor and shields and gas masks and start shooting rubber bullets and tear gas and beating people with batons and people on horseback trampling over people. It's not going to encourage people to go peacefully into the night.
A little bit of a confirmation of what a lot of those people are there protesting.
Yeah, the violence.
It's a little bit of a confirmation immediately of what you're there to protest. I mean, it laughs in the face of good storytelling. You know what I mean? It's like you guys are confirming why we're here. Well, I will throw private back into the pool though, Aaron, just a little bit in that, just to remind our listeners that the definition of private versus public is also under threat, right? Like that line gets blurred and where the line is drawn and the amount of private companies and corporations that have put pressure on states, governments, local governments, et cetera, to disperse these crowds. Well, vandalism will happen. They're going to graffiti our walls and break our windows and steal sneakers from the sneaker store. Yeah. That stuff does they do have a loud voice and they use it and they make things even more complicated.
I mean, the people with the money are pulling the strings?
A lot of the times the cops are there to protect private property.
Exactly.
And get things back to business as usual because that's what capitalism runs off of.
That is what is the most important.
That's the most important.
We must get back to business.
Well, speaking of getting back to business, let's get back to. Sorry, Devin, I totally derailed you.
All good. We did Father's Day stuff yesterday. Caught up with my dad for a little bit. Drove past the Juneteenth celebration since we had already, had stuff to eat and drink. I felt kind of weird showing up full, and then seeing what was going on with Juneteenth. But I do want to make a little bit more time next year to be there. We've actually had one of the longest Juneteenth celebrations in the country here in Denver, going as far back as the 50s.
Yeah, nice. Wow. Yeah, my wife was there tabling for her organization for the Sierra Club. And awesome. I think that's an example. What was interesting is she came back and she was like, no one really signed up. They weren't really engaging. She's like, I think everyone was just there to celebrate and to enjoy. And, they were trying to do some outreach, but I think really like people were doing a healthy thing. They were actually doing what we hope them to do in this flourishing moment, which is like let's celebrate each other, get together as community, share food, share games, share enjoyment, and they didn't want to engage in the political stuff right now, which is okay, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and as my wife said, who's, she's mixed. She was like, I think for Black folks, we feel like we've invested a lot of energy historically into the well-being of this country. We've sacrificed a lot already, and we don't need to keep, like, right now in this moment. Some of
it's about
like
the barbecue.
Hey,
it's the cookout.
It's on y'all. Y'all need to step up and fix this. So, that's what she came back telling me yesterday.
Yeah. I felt the Jazz Fest felt this as well. There were people trying to pitch and table, and to this point about healthy behavior in times of high stress and anxiety. You felt it this year. This is the first time I felt it really. You don't normally pay much mind to people tabling at like a concert or like a festival, but this was one of the first times I actively heard people say, yo, not now. We're going to listen to music.
Yeah.
No. And that would be like a liberal person talking to a liberal person. Like, no, like I'm not, this is not politics day. This is music day.
Yeah.
And I thought that was something I was encouraged by that. That was, as a very politically minded person, I was still like, you guys may have chose the wrong Sunday.
With all this stuff we're talking about, I like the question in the back of my head is like, until what point, like, isn't it going to reach a point? Like, cause we keep drawing allegories with, Germany and the rise of Hitler and things like that. It's like, at what point is he going to be doing things where it's like, okay, guys, like self-care was a really nice idea, but like we need to make some flamethrowers or Molotov cocktails?
It's a good question.
It's a bit of both, right? Because you need time to recharge so that you can be a better iteration of yourself going into it. I think one of the comparisons I have is there's a boxing gym that I go to where we shoot the shit. I've left that place an hour after a class has ended because I'm talking about politics in general, where it's like, oh, well, it'd be real cool if, maybe more people had access to quality healthcare and stuff like that. But for that entire class, I don't have room to think about anything going on in the outside world. I'm doing drills. I'm keeping my conditioning up. And it does wonders for my mental health. I feel more recharged. I feel better prepared to weather whatever is coming my way when I leave that gym.
Yeah.
But it's really important to allow yourself to have those moments to recharge. It's just, to your point, again, it's all a lot of energy and time and a clever balancing act and making sure that you're saving time for these things, but you're not doing it too much in the same way that we worry about consuming too much news. It's, well, yeah, you want to make sure that you're practicing self-care, but you don't want to overindulge in that area.
Yeah. And I think, David, you might be alluding to the fact that, okay, well, when is the time when we shift from just resistance that is like the peaceful, nonviolent, passive type of resistance to when we need more direct action and actually getting and disrupting in overtly hostile manners, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is like, there is a time for that type of resistance. I'm not saying I advocate for necessarily all forms of the ways that we can do that type of stuff. Right?
I'm not either, for the record.
Yeah. But I also think there's the Martin Luther King kind of Gandhi type of, right, nonviolent resistance. And then there's the, let's say, Malcolm X, Black Panther, like, Brown Beret, like, I don't know, that version of stuff, right? Where it's like we need.
Well, don't forget, MLK did also acknowledge that more aggressive forms of protesting are valid. They just tend to,
and that's when they
sanitize
assassinated
it for
him.
the larger populace.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. In 1968, he was coming around to that for sure. But I think, what I was going to say, the Malcolm X side of things, right, is the by any means necessary.
Yeah.
And there is a certain point where it's like,
right,
you can't police people or tell people exactly how they can stand up for their human rights and protect and defend their families and their communities. There's a certain line where that gets crossed. And as much as people want to say, oh, don't throw rocks, don't act in a violent way. Well, the state does not have the end all be all authority on the provision of violence. And when the state is beating us and imprisoning us and disappearing people of our community and throwing them in Salvadorian prisons, and hitting us with batons and shooting rubber bullets, which can be lethal if they're non-lethal, but they can be lethal if you shoot it in someone's eye, for instance, or when the Marines and the military are called on the people of LA, like that is crossing lines. Yep. And I think that is where it is, right? We're very close, honestly, to this point where it is like people are going to start doing what they do, which is reacting to an intolerable injustice that's happening. And we can't expect them not to. So, it's almost like I'm not saying we're promoting violence, but I'm saying when civil disobedience becomes improbable and is not working, violent resistance becomes necessary.
I think when we get into this arena of discussion with protest, my mind goes to like the David Mitchells of the world, the Stephen Frys, there's a lot of Brits actually who like tear apart the English language, their own language, because they've had it for thousands of years. So they're able to like find all this irony in it. And the word violence is very funny to me. I heard somebody else recently who was going through a very kind of problematic marriage situation. And the partner said after 2.5 years of really working on this relationship and it being pretty violent to all of us outside looking in, this partner had the audacity to be like, well, we haven't tried everything. We could try brutal honesty. And my friend and I were talking about this and we were like, what part of the last 2.5 years wasn't brutal to you? What is your definition of brutal in this moment? Wow, we are arguing from two different universes of truth. In fact, because my version of brutal is what the fuck we just did for 2 years, dude. What do you mean there's a new level of brutality that we can achieve and that will fix this? It was an insane suggestion, right? I feel the same way about violence. Violence, the definition of it starts to lose its meaning to me. The more we use it in this context, it's strange. It's like, haven't we lost the beat? Like, what about this isn't violent? What about those folks meeting at a bridge and being beaten chewed out by dogs and beaten by bats with studs in them and stuff like that? Like, what a part that isn't already violent?
Taking away our rights.
What about
forcing
that's
a woman
violent act
to carry a pregnancy through who has been raped is violent.
That's a violent act.
Yeah. Or doesn't have the means to support that child and wants to take care of herself. Yeah. Right. Like that's violent.
Ripping a parent from their kids.
Publishing a playbook on how to convert America to a Christo-fascist nation is violent. A huge threat to the religious freedoms of millions of people.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a I get a little bit of a ha when like violence in the media is often referring to burning cars and broken glass. And I'm like, okay, so stuff that costs money. Because like if we're talking about violence, like we live in a violent and volatile state already. Yeah. Period. Like some Waymos being set on fire, blow me. Sorry. Like that's the zone we're in.
If we look at capitalism, right? If we think about capitalism, the extreme disparities in wealth, where we have billionaires running this country and an oligarchy that has taken over, and then you have the top 10% hoarding all of the wealth.
Yeah. Oof.
And the top 1% who hoards all the power. Yeah. And it disenfranchises all of the other 90% of this country. That is violent in itself. And when we turn the table on this capitalist narrative of like property itself is this, don't attack property. Well, those people who have those buildings, I mean, first of all, they have insurance policies and yes,
they're fine.
I'm not saying it's tactically the smartest idea for people to burn things and break things.
Or even the answer at all.
Or maybe not even the answer, but it's an expression of disenfranchisement.
Yes.
And when people don't feel they have a means, an avenue to express that dissent in another way that's actually meaningful to get the change that they want, they will take that avenue. So what we're doing right now is we're stripping that away from people.
Yeah.
Taking that completely. We're not allowing people to actually have any means to effectively impact their situation or improve their community that has teeth. Or that people in power are listening.
Yeah, and we forget one last thing that's dark. This is not a bright thing. This is a dark thing. But if you look at violence, if you look at graffiti and burning Waymos as violence in a different container of conversation and a different critical lens, then you're looking at it as a as across a line, and you think that, oh, this peaceful protest has suddenly become violent, and now because of this flipped over bus and this graffiti, it's now violent. And I think that's a total misread for another reason.
Yeah.
Throughout history, we monkeys tend to break stuff before we kill each other. Be blessed in that. Feel blessed in that. Feel blessed that this peaceful protest only ended in vehicles on fire and glass broken, because the next phase after that is killing each other and doing that shit to each
You're
other.
right.
That's destroying property is actually a train station on a route.
True.
And it's actually like a saving grace that it only got to that place.
Yeah.
It's not the end zone. That's a stepping stone along violence, right? So like I get why people try to suppress it, but I also think that the media and our sort of modern culture has totally what's the word I'm looking for? Like
they've confounded the terms of everything is wrapped in this term of violence, which is from the state itself. The state dictates that and says we're defining what is violent and what's not violent. And really, property destruction is just you're breaking a window. You're not smashing someone's head.
You're not breaking someone's head in. Like, I really think about this all the time when they talk about and vandals and they stole all the shoes and they broke into all the TVs, ha ha ha. And I'm like,
redistributed
they redistributed the wealth, man. You know, they're not breaking skulls. You know, like they're breaking into glass and they're taking TVs and someone gets trampled in the chaos. But there's no melees, right? Like the melee is when people start fucking dying and shooting each other and stabbing each other and blah blah. And then no one gives a shit about tennis shoes. Just to be clear, like no one gives a fuck about a flat screen TV when we actually are killing each other like that.
and people are right, like the senator in Minnesota that got assassinated and her husband got assassinated. Yeah, and you know, like that's very real violence that's spilling over right now. Yeah.
Just pointing out, he's also not, from what I've seen with mainstream media, has not been referred to as a terrorist yet, despite
right.
those very terroristic acts.
He's a right-wing white guy, so he can't be a terrorist. If he was
not possible.
Yeah. If he was left-wing or a person of color,
Aaron, of course, he has mental issues.
Oh boy.
Yeah. If he went after people in power, then yes, he'd be charged with terrorism. But he went after people in power who were, in some capacity, would oppose the current administration, so it's fine.
Oh, right, so it's totally okay.
Well, I want to bring this back to the ADHD stuff too for a second. So emotionally flooding, that's a feature of ADHD. How we're more sensitive, hypersensitive to what's going on in our environment. Yeah. And it's not to say that's not like necessarily a weakness. People might look at that as that's a weakness. And I don't think so. I actually think that makes us more empathetic. It makes us more responsive in certain contexts to what is happening. But what makes it harder for us on an individual level is how do we find ways to modulate that and ways to contain some of the intensity of those emotions, because it can spill over and make us react in ways that we actually don't want, that are not constructive to the goals that we have.
Yeah.
So that's where the emotional regulation piece comes in. And I think it's not in the times where we're in these heightened flashpoints of stress. That's why it's important for us to do the emotional regulation work and these practices day to day in between.
Right.
So building practices of going to the gym or working out or doing some sort of exercise, movement, moving your body is really important, because it's a way to regulate your cortisol and help the stress move through you. The other thing is, I think, mindfulness, meditation, breath work, ways we can come back and reframe and have more awareness of our intentions and our actions and align those things.
Internal strength.
Right. The internal resolve.
That when your eyes are closed, there's only one thing, it's you and you.
Yeah.
You know?
And it can actually help us. It can help us weather the storm of what's happening, because we can create a little bit of distance between that stimulus of what's happening in the environment and our reaction, and be more intentionally responsive with what we do. And the other thing is, sometimes we take on other people's emotional states. We take it in as if it's us. We over-relate to people. And that blurring of the boundary between what is going on and what's their stuff and what's my stuff and how they're feeling and what I'm feeling makes it very difficult, especially when there's a lot of people in pain, a lot of people suffering, when you have friends and family and other people going through very hard times. And I wouldn't say what we do is, you don't turn a blind eye to that stuff. You don't suppress it. But what we need to do is, I think, consciously recognize, differentiate, between what's your locus of control? What's their stuff? What's my stuff? What can I control? What can I do something about? And what can't I? And we can still provide compassion and empathy and support while we harbor a very solid foundation of understanding that this isn't my burden to bear in this moment, and let it ruminate in my head. The natural reaction usually is to suppress and to avoid discomfort, especially these emotional things that are going on in others or the situations that will trigger us to react. The knee-jerk reaction is to avoid it or to suppress it. And what our challenge is to actually do the opposite, to stay in it, to be aware, to open our eyes fully, to radically accept, as we like to say on Attention Effort, to radically accept what is happening. That doesn't mean we like it. Acceptance is not agreeing with it or liking it.
No.
It's saying we see it with our eyes open. We're woke. So we can put that word in here, right?
Finally, appropriate use of that term.
Yes. Yeah. Abrir los ojos.
Yeah. And we're turning to it because we know that with our eyes wide open, we're seeing it for what it is. And we're allowing those emotions to be there. And that through that, we process it. You can process it in real time. It's going to be intense at points. It's going to be hard. We're going to have these waves of emotions. And I think it's up to us to keep doing the work collectively and for ourselves to find moments of peace, moments of joy, moments of gratitude, moments of togetherness.
Yeah.
Moments of collective solidarity, moments of raw expression of emotion, which some may say is rage, and understand that that's part of our human experience, and support each other in that, and not judge each other and shut that stuff down, that we allow that stuff to be there.
Hell yeah.
Agreed.
I'm so honored by the 4 people here, actually. While you were saying that last bit at the end, Aaron, I was
glad you're including yourself in there.
I will include myself in there. I look at the little windows and going, oh, all these beautiful grown-ass men who are so emotionally connected and vulnerable and powered in it. Like every single person here has at some point or another been like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling the heat coming off you. Like, yeah, no, go ahead. Like, yeah, let it out. Let's talk it out. Yeah. To not reject or judge or close someone down or shut someone down. Raw is raw. It's okay. Raw is raw and raw is okay. And Aaron, so beautifully said. Radical acceptance, man.
All right, wrap us out, Devin.
Cool. If you know any of your friends that need a pick me up, send them a photo of Bon-chan, the tortoise. It's this tortoise out in Tsukushima over in Japan who is, I think he's like probably in his 30s now, but there's a 70-something-year-old man that takes him out for walks.
I've seen this.
And he's got that little hat on. And I was actually looking at photos of him during this episode while we were talking about taking care of ourselves and looking to things that help us feel recharged. So yeah, I've been looking at Bon-chan photos during this episode.
And how do you spell his name? How do you spell the tortoise's name?
Bon-Chan. He's a giant African tortoise.
Yeah.
Bon-chan.
Kind of reminds me of Steven in a lot of ways.
What?
He's got a little turtle on him too sometimes.
You just played.
It's great.
I can't. I'm gonna be looking this up immediately after.
Good. You should.
We'll see you back for part 2 of this, which is going to be like the RFK tax on neurodiversity.
Oh boy.
Neurodivergent
Cool.
folks. All right.
Everything's good and fine, everybody.
All right.
Good and fine.
No, yeah, we're all doing great. Yeah.